I say mambo, you say poa, okay? Hey, mambo. Poa. Mambo, mambo. Poa. Yeah. Great. My name is Twalha Abbas, and I'm so glad to see everybody here. You're welcome. Karibuni. That's the word in Swahili. Karibuni. And then you say asante. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about storytelling in Tanzania, and then I'll tell you a short story, right? So storytelling is very important in Tanzania as it is everywhere, right? You know, stories are like everything. I love stories. And one of the reasons why people tell stories in Tanzania, the reason why stories are very important is because of their moral implications. We believe that stories are everything. Like if we want to teach a child how to behave well in a society, we need a story. So instead of like putting a child on a table and telling them, hey, respect the elders, you don't say that. You just tell a story, you know, and then you can tell them what the story means, right? But also, when do we normally tell stories? So where I come from the place called Bukoba, northwest Tanzania. And my people used to say that when you tell a story in the afternoon, my mother used to tell me that when I was a child, that when we tell stories in the afternoon, we will die because we will run out of food and we will face famine and all die. And I grew up believing that, but until later when I came to realize that the technique was that in the afternoon people go to work, and then at night when everybody's home they can tell stories. So that was a technique to prevent people being lazy. So they wanted them to work instead of just listening to stories. So we tell stories at night when the food is cooking, and also to prevent kids from sleeping before eating. So stories will take the time of, just like fill the gap. I'm going to tell you a very short story, one of my favorite stories. So I say paukwa and then pakawa. That's how we begin stories. So before I tell a story, the storyteller will say paukwa, and then the audience will say pakawa. You give me a mood of, set me in the mood of telling the story, right? Okay, paukwa. Paukwa. Okay, great. So once upon a time, an ostrich, a very giant one actually, lived peacefully on top of Kilimanjaro. If you can see maybe on the side screen, you can see the top of Kilimanjaro. So that used to be a home for Mr. Ostrich. Now, such a giant bird was also known to be most calm and friendly bird of all. And also he was known to be generous. Therefore, when birds were in need of something, let's say they're cooking something and then they run out of salt, mother bird or father bird will send their child to Mr. Ostrich. Of course, it will take a while before they reach to their place. For some reason, you're going to find out why. But they will go to Mr. Ostrich and then ask for salt. And Mr. Ostrich wouldn't even care to give a little salt, would give everything. I mean, the entire can of salt, just take it all because, I'm too generous, I can give it all, right? So that's how it used to be. And he had this ability to fly higher than the eagle, higher than you could imagine. Now, one day, all the birds gathered and they had a meeting on a big mango tree. And in this meeting, they had a discussion. Guys, why can't we fly higher like an ostrich? And this question was asked by the chairperson of the meeting, Mr. Eagle. Because we don't have as many feathers. Our wings are not as strong too. This was Miss Pigeon, the calm lady. So what should we do? We all want to fly higher, the chairperson asked. Nobody answered because they were thinking. But after a short while, the eagle proposed a solution. What if we call Mr. Ostrich? Not by phone, remember. But what if we call Mr. Ostrich? He might donate a few feathers to all of us. Sounds like a good plan. All birds replied at once because that was fun, right? Because they know the guy is generous and he would give it all. But there was a problem. The top of Kilimanjaro is too high, and It usually takes us 6 days to climb whenever we want to visit Mr. Ostrich. Do you think we should postpone the meeting and give Mr. Ostrich a proper invitation? That was a question from Miss Blue Jay. I can call him from here. He is too generous. He will show up instantly, Mr. Rooster proposed. Wait, what? That was the owl. From here? Kilimanjaro is 23 miles high. They all wondered. Trust me, that's what I do for a living, calling people and birds every morning. I do that every day. And then, bwana mbuni, njoo, he called the rooster. So Mr. Ostrich arrived, flying with joy, his face covered with smile and laugh. Tell me what you want, and I will give you all I have, he said. We know how generous you are, Mr. Ostrich, and that's why we have called you here today. Please, give us a few feathers each. We want to be able to fly higher like you. Say no more. He didn't even think about it. Say no more, eagle. I'll give you as much feathers as I can. Now, in the next hour, he was doing the donation, giving at least 2 feathers to each bird. And there were like hundreds or thousands of them, right? He gave feathers to everybody there with joy. Now, with their new feathers, every time they received new feathers, the birds flew away, their faces filled with happiness, and then it was Mr. Ostrich's time to fly at the end. Because he's done with the job. He's like, everybody good? He's like, hey, we're good. They're flying away, and he's just looking at them joyfully. I've donated and I'm good now. You know, I've done my job. So it's my time to go home, back to the top of Kilimanjaro. Now, he tried to fly, but oh my God, he couldn't, because he had no feathers left for himself. How could he now get himself home? He started crying. Now, as he watched the birds fly around, he started to sing for himself. Now, we are going to sing together. Remember, he was crying. So if you can, let's cry with him. Okay? So I'm going to sing the first round, and then you'll follow after me, okay? Habari gani, habari gani, habari gani vijana wenzangu. Let's try. Habari gani, habari gani, habari gani vijana wenzangu. Remember, the guy was crying. I should not be smiling. I should be crying. Calling the birds. But do they even listen? They're happy flying higher. Hey, 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 hello, how are you? And then it says, ndege wanaruka ruka mitini makundi makundi, bila shaka nao hufurahi. Let's try. Ndege wanaruka ruka mitini makundi makundi, bila shaka nao hufurahi. Baba yangu nipatie maisha mema na mazuri, ili nami niweze kufurahi. Together. Baba yangu nipatie maisha mema na mazuri, ili nami niweze kufurahi. Don't ask me where the father was, because I don't know. So he accepted the situation and wanted to be happy no matter without the feathers, right? And then he started to teach himself how to run. Remember, he doesn't have feathers anymore. And the birds are even no longer remembering him. They're just like minding their business. And he started to teach himself how to fly. He said, wait, I still have an option. I still have legs. I can still run. So he started teaching himself how to run. And then instead of the top of Kilimanjaro today, the ostrich being the fastest bird on earth, he resides in the crater of Ngorongoro and Serengeti and not on top of Kilimanjaro anymore because he can't get there anymore, but he's like the giant bird in the craters of Ngorongoro. So that is the story. What do you think this story teaches us? At least two things. One, two. Yes, please.
I feel like it's saying like you should be generous, but not to the point where like you give everything you have, because then people will take advantage of you.
Of course. Yeah. Yay. One more thing? Yes, please.
To still keep the optimism and make the best out of a bad situation, like learning to run.
You see? Yay! Vizuri sana, eh? That's great. That's great. You got it. You got it right. Because first, this story teaches us that before we make collective decision, first of all, it's important to discuss with others. The birds called a meeting and decided, to go with one common plan. But second, we should never do things beyond our capacity. Like you said, people will take advantage of you if you be too generous, right? And third, we should never give up. Always have plan B, right? Keep trying no matter how much we fail. And the ostrich taught himself, you can see, to run so fast that he became faster than all other animals on earth. So and that's the end of my story. Asanteni. Thank you, Asanteni. Yeah. Oh, that's our friend.